Discovery.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show. Actually, you know what? I'm sick of doing it. Kirk, could you just go ahead and take this back over?
Yeah. Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast that's about other podcasts, where every single week we have a book club style discussion about a podcast we recommended last week. And at the end of this episode, we're going to recommend a brand new show. And I'm back and I'm excited. I'm Kirk.
I'm Zach. And another major announcement. We're bringing on the voice that you've heard with me for the past month. Mr. Matt Walker is now officially a part of the Podcast Discovery Show. We could not be more excited.
It's
Hell
an
yeah.
honor to be aboard.
Welcome
Naval
aboard,
ship.
sir.
Why, thank you, Captain.
But yeah, this week we are talking about a show called Sound and Vision. It is a show produced by KEXP. I actually recommended a couple of these episodes because they fit very well together, and I believe Matt has a quick breakdown of the show itself.
Sure. The Sound and Vision podcast from KEXP features interviews, panels, reporting, and commentary that digs into the stories behind the music with in-depth discussion of the most important issues facing music and arts communities. New episodes are published on Tuesdays and Thursdays with bonus features throughout the week. Sound and Vision is hosted by hosts Emily Fox and John Richards.
And the two episodes I brought started with how big music is hurting the industry. And then the second one is Spotify and streaming transparency. So had either of you guys heard Sound and Vision before?
I had not. No.
And I'm assuming you're both familiar with KEXP as an organization. And that's really all I had kind of known. You know, I just saw the KEXP made a podcast. I was like, sign me up. I will listen to it. And then I found these episodes and they were so interesting. And then also we get to hear kind of Matt's really interesting perspective on all this. What did you guys think of the show?
Ooh, I think I summed it up best by texting you, Zach. This is bleak, very bleak sounding, but it's crazy. What a crazy show. I love the way they put it together. Great. Very digestible too, like big topics that they break down perfectly for like 20 minutes. It's like, I don't know how they do it so well.
Yeah, no, it's a great show. And I don't have a lot of context to it, but I still learned a heck of a lot. Like Matt's perspective is going to be something that I'm very interested in. And that's why I'm excited about having a third person, because now we have a completely different perspective on this.
I'm trying to decide if I should be offended that you needed another perspective.
No, I'm saying now we've got three.
Yeah, no, I'm messing with you.
What's funny though is I agree with both of you on everything.
That's
like, yep, definitely not going to happen.
No,
1,000% sure.
It won't. But that's part of the fun. But yeah, no, I had never really dug into all of the detail of this. But yeah, like you said, Matt, it sounds great. I do love this length of episode. They end up being 15 to 20 minutes. So kind of no matter how long your commute, you could just throw on a quick episode. They'll break down a cool topic. And a lot of times they will bring on artists. KEXP has basically a who's who of independent / alternative artists coming through there. And so you will get a lot of really interesting interviews and perspectives from them as well. So not all of them are kind of these topical things. It kind of bounces around where they'll bring people in to share what their thoughts are and things like that too. So it's a really cool show. It sounds amazing, obviously. Mm-hmm. The hosts have fantastic voices. The sound quality is what you would expect from KEXP. But then we get to the bleak part of this show, which is, and it's so interesting because I feel like it's happening with so many different industries, you know, because they even mention Amazon, and you talk about things like all the streaming services popping up. And there's a lot of these industries that it seems better because, and don't get me wrong, I'm a Spotify subscriber. You know, mm-hmm. I listen, that's where I listen to my podcasts now because it doesn't download anything. And so I felt like, am I in the wrong here? Because really,
am I part of the problem?
Yeah. The first one is how big music is hurting the industry. And that is slightly different because one of their main premises here was it's kind of been this slow condensing of the amount of things available for 30, 40 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Because in peak record times, there was tons of record labels and they would kind of be very specialized in niche. They would find their type of music they wanted to put out and they would do that. But then they all started being bought up. And so now you've gotten to the point where instead of there's being all these independent record labels that'll have a certain thing, you have 3 record labels that have all the music.
Yeah.
And then you have everyone else, which they didn't mention this stat, but I bet it's crazy how many people are on like DIY publishers and making their own music and doing things like that. Because if you look at probably the numbers comparatively are crazy.
Yeah, no, what I found was interesting and what this show reminded me of, specifically that episode, how big music is hurting the industry. It reminded me of that show that we recommended not that long ago, Land of the Giants, where they did Netflix and Google and Amazon. And I bet you money they're going to do one on Spotify too, just because it's one of those juggernauts that has amassed so much power in its lane that it's just steamrolled anybody else in its path.
Yeah, it's crazy. I liked the way the author that was the guest on there, Ron Knox. I love the way he called it the homogenization of popular music.
Okay,
because that's what it leads to. Because I was like, oh yes, because I've had this long held belief that like my girlfriend listens to all the pop music, and she'll be like, this one I can run to. I can run to this one. And I go, you know what? You can run to other people's music. and that 0.38 cents means so much more to that person than it does Lady Gaga or Britney Spears. And I'm like, just seek that out. But I loved the idea that it's like, oh, great. Now we just have this pop music that is like music to exercise to. Because it's like 120 BPM. Key of A minor or C, and it's like boom. That's most pop music, like all of it. Even
so funny because I feel like it's a classic old head type. Like you think people are being goofy when they say like, oh, music used to be better, and I don't agree with that in premise. But the available music used to be better. You know what I mean? With all of these indie record houses, it wasn't like this. It wasn't where 3 people, 3 groups get to decide what is going to be the music they put money behind. Because really, you have gotten to that place where it's all going to be fairly similar because they figured out that formula. They figured out what sticks in your head and makes you want to dance and want to move, and they put it out.
And it's interesting when he talked about the term payola. I don't know if you, but that concept.
I'd never heard that before.
I hadn't either, but I knew what it was. I was like, that's called payola, huh? Payola is the concept of someone literally paying a radio station DJ to play your song or record or album or whatever. And it just made me think of like Rebecca Black. You remember Rebecca Black?
Yeah, Friday, right?
That was trash. Like, but but it's like, if you took the words out and put someone else's words on it, it could be a hit. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't see any musical distinction there between that and anything else. And that's the danger, I think, of what the author's talking about. Because it's like, because this process, the payola is a symptom of the conglomeration of everything, because they're putting money behind things that have worked. Therefore, they keep putting out the same thing, which is crazy to me. And I wanted to bring this up. I just thought of it, but there's this great Frank Zappa interview where he's talking about the music industry and how this is happening essentially. And he says that back in the 60s, rock and roll is starting to come about, and all these record executives are like, I don't know, the kids like it, so here's a bunch of money, make a record. And then that's how he got all this experimental stuff. But then those same people who got the money then became the record executives. And they said, this is what sells. What we did sells. And they keep doing it and running off of that model until, well, not until anything, until it keeps making money because it's readily available. And I was like, that is crazy. We listen to it because it's there, not because it's great.
Yeah, no, and that it was interesting to me, kind of the idea that they even mentioned the payola part, because they're like, we want this distinction here, because it's that whole idea of it will say or something that this is a paid promotion. This is not something where, like, I don't know.
In context, he was talking about this new thing that Spotify's doing, which is basically that. And I didn't know about that.
I didn't know about this program at all.
This is like, what the heck? It was like, take less royalties and we will promote your music on Spotify. And it's just like, oh, it's so grimy. That one, see, that's the thing. That's what, it sucks. Because as a consumer, I love Spotify.
It's great.
It's great.
The best.
It's so
great.
easy.
It is great.
And I have I remember spending so much money on CDs and then ripping them to my iPod and then having to make more room for the dip. And it was just like such a pain. And now I don't have to do anything. I mean, if I were to tell my 16-year-old self, hey, one day on your phone, not on a separate device, but on a phone, you're going to have unlimited songs by anybody.
By the world. The whole
that
world.
You don't even have to like download at home on your internet. You can just listen to it immediately. I wouldn't have even believed it.
Yeah.
And the fact that we
interface.
have that powerful piece of technology is awesome. But then because with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. Yes.
And Spider-Man in this case has not been very responsible.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is, like, I feel like it could be both. Like Spotify, you're making money. Come on, like you could pay artists more.
How are you going to argue against a penny a play? Like, how is that a thing?
It's crazy. It's crazy. I knew my buddy, his band got like hit it big on Spotify, and it was like one of their songs the day after they released it. 100,000 plays. And I was like, dang, dude, nice. That's awesome. And he's like, yeah, all 5 of us each made $20. Yeah. I was like, oh, wow. That's bonkers. But a penny a play would still only be what is that? Someone better at math than me. 100,000 divided by what
was it?
Penny?
Zeros. What? I don't. Oh, no, you're talking. Yeah, if it was a penny.
Yeah, it would be $1,000. What?
We're really showing our lack of math knowledge.
You divide it by 100. There you go. You divide it by 100, so it would be
1,000.
It'd be 1,000. So you'd have $1,000 between 5 people for 100,000 plays.
Which like if you hit 100,000 plays on Spotify, like that's fantastic. Especially if you're not any kind of backed by a huge label or anything like that. That is just a grassroots thing. That's fantastic to hit that.
Amazing.
And I mean, we talked about it beforehand because the statistic is so crazy. But they said the 3 major record labels are making crazy money on these same platforms. They mentioned an example of some of the, like one of the bigger ones, making $1 million an hour on streaming. And then the other 99%, yes, 99% of artists on Spotify make under $25 a year.
A year.
So
what?
It's just crazy. But that really points to that same idea where there are curated kind of lists. It's like the radio. Even what the whole thing of like pop music, what that is not as much a genre as it is the available music. Readily available. You turn on the radio. Here it is. Here's the pop music. And that being that available helps the people that are doing that win.
Right. And it really is big music and Spotify working in conjunction with each other. only big music makes money off Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's a little bit of them seeing the problems. You know, I think even the record
I love
labels
how they
are seeing
both blame
cracks
each
forming.
other.
Yeah,
They both kind of blame each other. It's like, oh no, we're not ripping off the artist. They are. And they're like, no, we're not paying the artist. They are. You know?
yeah, they just point to the other guy enough that hopefully nobody knows what's happening. And that kind of rolls us into the second episode because it really, then it got specific. You know, then the second episode, they talk about Spotify specifically. They talk about the issues.
By the way, great recommendations tying these two together. It's like a perfect segue in a way.
It was awesome.
No, and I think she even mentioned it at the end. They even did. And they were separated.
Come on, take the credit. Come on.
Well, I can't take the credit. She had a great idea. And but it's really interesting to kind of go from, you look at the thing is at a whole, like at a high level, you see how, okay, so there's problems across the board here. And then you get really specific with Spotify. And on this episode, they have, his name is Zach Nestle-Pat, and he's it's the Union for Artists and the Union of Musicians and Allied Workers, and he is one of the leaders of this group. And Spotify apparently, and I never even heard this. I think this was directed directly towards musicians who are starting to be upset about it. But they had an initiative called Loud and Clear, which they put out a whole website. You know, they put out a page saying, "We hear you, everybody. We hear that you're upset." And then they basically non-answered on all of the major issues. And they did exactly like what Kirk was talking about, where they just kind of pointed at each other and said like, "Oh, well, I don't know." Because one of the things was, is that 0.38 cents per stream a thing? And they said, well, we don't really think that that's a good metric because people aren't paying per stream. So why would we even care about that? It's like,
because that's how you're paying the artist.
We care about how you're paying, guys. Like, you know, this is what's happening.
And was that on this episode or the other one where he was saying, he was breaking down how it like actually was? It's like every time someone picks your song and listens to it, they are technically buying that.
That was on the bit How Big Music Hurt the Industry.
Yeah. And I love that because it's like, as soon as he mentioned that, because I watched them the other way around. I watched I listened to the Spotify one and then the other one. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I've never
thought about it that way. He's like, they're making a purchase. You're making a purchase when you stream someone's song.
Yeah. And it's essentially like, so we subscribe to Spotify. I spend, like $7 a month. And I essentially have $7 worth of sales. It's like touch tunes, I have that in my bank account, not really like, and
no,
then
I get what you're saying.
Each time I click on a thing, I'm spending 0.38 or whatever it ends up being, and I just loved hearing him break it down that way. And then listening to the Spotify one, because he didn't mention this, Zach, the other guest, he didn't mention that way of doing it, but he was like, we make money that way. But he wasn't saying that it's like each song is a sale, which was like, oh, that blows your mind when you think about it.
And it really makes you think about it in a sense of like, well, they should be compensated for this.
Exactly.
And they brought up another example where, and this was on this episode, where there was a band who had, I think they were really kind of hitting it pretty well. They were hitting like 800,000 hits on one of their songs. But they made more money from selling 2,000 CDs, like a lot more. But neither of those amounts was enough to actually have them be full-time artists.
Right.
And so you get all these interesting perspectives because Zach is actually in a band himself. So he's kind of basically he's looking at this and thinking, well, how am I ever going to be able to fully embrace just making music, Yeah. And that's something where I feel like everybody would agree that you want people that want to make music to go make music, to go realize that dream and to be able to provide for themselves and their families because of what they're doing if they're good at it,
And hell, it's like if they're making it anyway and it's good, then yeah, why not? Because that's the whole thing. They're on Spotify already. Mm-hmm. Why not? Like, they're taking this seriously. Why not do it? As soon as he said that thing, I was kind of like, turned to my girlfriend and was like, damn. Oh man, that kind of hits too close to home.
All right. So we're 20 minutes into this recording, right? And when you stepped away earlier, Matt, I started playing your playlist of songs on Spotify. And in those 20 minutes, you have made 19 cents.
Nice. Nice.
You're welcome. I am now part of the solution.
Yeah. No, you're right. I am. Everybody, we would like to humbly request that you play Matt's music while you go to sleep tonight. Just listen to it. But yeah, no, there's also been, that's another interesting thing is there's been some people who've gamed this. There is a group called Wolfpack, which if you've never listened to them, check them out. They're amazing, kind of funky jazz stuff. And they made a completely silent album that they literally told all their fans to listen to on repeat, which they did. And they made a lot of money on a completely silent album that was just trying to game the idea that, okay, it's about repeated streams. And so they did. I think since that's been banned in general.
What?
Because they don't want people trying to do that.
What doesn't make sense about that is why would Spotify care? If they don't care about the music that they're pushing forward and doing, they're still making money off of a silent album being streamed like that.
Yeah, they're still on your platform.
It's bonkers. My favorite one is, I don't know if we've told Matt or if he's heard of him. Have you ever heard of Matt Farley?
No.
Okay. We
had him on the show, on our show, because his
phone number is available.
I don't know how to
explain his cell phone. You can call his cell phone.
Every song he has on Spotify, I believe, has his cell phone on there, and he answers immediately, like on the second ring. He has 21,000 songs on Spotify. That's what he does, is writes songs all day long and records them in his basement.
My God.
And my favorite is that he has a song for every day of the week. Mm-hmm. He has a song for almost every name you could possibly think of for a birthday song. So I have a playlist for my kids for on their birthday. It's like, happy birthday, Leah. It's so stupid and it's so good and it's so great.
Yeah, he's playing the numbers game here.
Wow.
Yeah, I played that for Mason for, it's the same thing, but the input Mason. And then he was turning 9 and it's like, you're 9 years old. You're 9 years old.
Yeah, he has all the different ages, like all the way up to 100.
It's the same tune in every song. He just changes out the number and it's a completely different song.
And he has 10 songs about poop.
No, there's 200 songs
about poop.
Yes. He has a few hundred songs just about poop.
Man, I need to get on his level. I only have 5 or 6.
He currently has 21,000 songs as of February 2021.
That's genius. Does it?
So yeah.
Does it say how many plays that he has or listeners, monthly listeners?
I listened to. I heard about him through a podcast called TLDR, which is what what was the Reply All spun off from that show.
Okay.
And they interviewed him for a whole episode, and I forgot what he said, but I think his average song makes $6 or something.
But he has 20,000 of them.
Yes, but $6 a month usually. Some of them make less than $1, but I think the average was he makes $6 a month on a song.
There's some deep tracks even for Matt Farley, and people don't all listen to all of them, but it's all just part of the same thing where they're trying to figure out how to just get as many plays as possible. But the fact that this man has to and I don't think he's driving a Lamborghini,
no,
but he has 21,000 songs to try to just scrape a living by. And it's just really interesting to hear kind of the different ways that artists approach this.
Yeah. So this is kind of interesting. This might be an insider perspective, but there's a Spotify for artists. So I use a distribution company called CD Baby. It's pretty much like any digital distribution platform there is. You upload your music, your album artwork there, and you fill out all the stuff, and it'll send it out to everything. Spotify included. You can Spotify's one of the only ones that you can opt out of because how they pay. But after doing that, you have to actually claim your Spotify artist channel. You have to do this with YouTube and all the other ones too. But the Spotify for Artists page is really funny because you go to it and it's like super, super clean. It's very beautiful. But when you upload a song or it gets pitched to them or sent to them via your distributor, you can go to the upcoming release thing and pitch your song to the Spotify editorial team that then can listen to your song and then put it on playlists, like release playlists. And so I've released in the past, like, I don't know, 6 months or so, probably like 4 or 5 songs. And I pitch each one and it makes you go through this pretty demoralizing process. They're like, tell us about the song. It's like, well, I don't know, listen to it. I don't like, why don't you just listen? But it makes you do that. And it's like, what's a mood that this song might inhabit? And it'll be like happy, cheerful, sad, angsty, or it'll be like none of the above. So it's like, you're basically going like, hey, here's my song. I promise you might like it. And so I've done that for each one of them. And I don't know what happens with
How many playlists are you on?
I don't know if I'm on any. Like, I honestly...
Have you ever put angsty as the mood?
Yes, I have. You've heard my music. It's sad. It's mostly sad and angsty. Yet to click cheerful. but not just on Spotify for Artists, on Life.
On Life. I haven't clicked cheerful yet.
No, that's interesting. I didn't know that that's the process that, an indie artist has to go through.
It's funny because then what it does is if you pitch it and you get on a playlist, it'll put it on your release radar and it'll essentially be like payola without cash, right? Well, I mean, except they are making money off it either way. So you're essentially throwing them the song and like, well, I did pay CD Baby to get on here. So here, and they never do anything. And that's why when he brought up how when you do take a smaller royalty from it and they'll like promote your music, I'm like, I immediately was like, oh, bullshit.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't promote anything.
Yeah, no. And I mean,
I
am curious because they have a ton of playlists. It's honestly one of my favorite things because I remember the earlier iterations of this were like Pandora, where it was all like playlist based and it was that. But then you get to Spotify and there are amazing playlists on here. There really are. Like you can really go find. I mean, I haven't really done mood ones particularly. There probably is that though, where it's like, how do I want to feel? Make me feel this way, Spotify. That creeps me out a little bit in general. But if you want like a certain genre of music and you can kind of dial it in pretty deep, you can do that. Their discovery playlists are generally pretty good.
Yes.
And so, and it makes me wonder, I did not know there was kind of like an editorial process. I didn't realize that was a thing at all that they were including.
Well, but here's the thing is I don't know if there really is. That's what I'm saying is I think
it exists, but you don't know if it works.
It's like a dummy feature that like, oh, look, you idiot. Like you can pitch your song, you moron. Yeah, right. So, like we're going to
at the end, does it try to get you to like do the payola thing?
No. So I think that stuff is only for like the labels because I don't know anybody that's been approached for that stuff because Spotify wants to make more money off of the bigger ones. They're not going to make any money off of the $25 guy,
Oh, so they're not even going to mess with it until it gets to like they probably did work this type of thing out with like the 3 major labels. They're like, well, we can wing it.
That's what we're talking about is none of the labels want to do it because they feel like as soon as one does it, they're all going to end up doing it, and then everybody makes less money. And we're talking about the people that are actually making money on Spotify.
The guys who are making $1 million an hour are worried about this.
Because I essentially think that what it is, if you go to the genre of music that's angsty, you're going to find a bunch of music that is already popular. Their discovery playlists.
Just all Billie Eilish. It's just literally Billie Eilish's entire CD.
I just think that every time that they have a playlist, you can't be certain of why that song's on there.
That's what I'm curious about too. Is it pure algorithm based, or is there curation there?
I think that they say it's algorithm, but I don't think it is, and if there's an editorial aspect to it, then you'd think that of the, I don't know, maybe I have like close to 20, probably about 20 songs on there. You'd think one of them would be on a playlist,
Yeah.
And not in the sense of like it deserves to be, but in the sense of like if there's an algorithm for discovering music that isn't discovered, like I don't even know how many playlists are on Spotify. I'm sure that's a stat somewhere.
Like because if you start talking about Spotify playlist is one thing, but then anybody can make playlists and those are available. Mm-hmm. So, and first of all, I'll say it for you. You do deserve to be on playlists, Matt, and I'm going to make one just for that.
Well, I mean, I'm on those playlists, but the quote unquote editorial ones, it's like, what criteria are you meeting? Are you meeting a criteria, or are you under the label at Universal and they're like, Universal makes money, so we're going to push that, Yeah. And that's why they want transparency with the thing.
Yeah.
More than anything.
And that's the funny thing is Spotify being passive aggressive about this when literally like, just say what you're doing, guys. Like that was the whole push is we want to know. Yeah. We want to know exactly what you're doing. They're like, you know what? You don't need to know that. Don't worry about it. The record labels are doing it. And like, it's just like the biggest non-answer, but in the end, really, really cool show. Mm-hmm. Like somewhat disappointing content, but as we talked, because Matt texted me after listening to this, he's like, "Well, that was bleak." And I was like, "Oh no, oh no!" And then, but there are
he's gonna
ways.
Quit. He already hates politicians, and now he hates this. We've ruined him.
No, the politicians. I think that was already established. I think that was already there. But
editing that was fun.
I'm sure it was.
Just because I could hear the ramp up of the cynical rage.
But here's the thing. Yeah. There are cool ways to support artists that actually are meaningful to the artist. And that is one of the coolest things that you can figure out, because if you have an artist you love, you can support them in a way that is meaningful and will help them out. First of all, Bandcamp. A lot of times they do what they call, royalty-free Fridays or weekends, and they will literally waive their fees, and all of the purchases made on Bandcamp go directly to the artist. So you can go on there. Most independent artists have a very rich Bandcamp because it's a great way to sell your CDs and to sell some merch and things like that, because then you can wait for those days where they're waiving fees. And all of that is literally directly supporting the artist. Mm-hmm. There's things like Patreon where you can just support what they're doing without having to be like, oh, this is a per stream thing. This is just, I believe in what you're doing. And you support them directly with like a subscription.
I think me and Zach are both Billy's patrons, right?
Yeah. And Matt has, I think is starting to ramp up his Patreon as well.
Oh yeah?
Getting it going.
Plug that thing. Is it going?
Yeah, we got 4 patrons, guys.
Hey, that's 4 more than we've got.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's really cool because, and it really just comes down to the artists will make more money if you're getting stuff from them directly. And this is something that applies in a lot of things. It's something I've heard from also, like, kind of, if you go on Amazon and you see something that's really cool, check that brand's website because they probably have it. They mentioned this on the big industry stuff side of that podcast. They said, like, essentially, if you are a small brand and you're trying to sell anything, Amazon owns such a bare share of all of this that you have to be on there. But you can usually find these same products available directly from them, and they have to try to like compete on the shipping and things like that. So you can do that too, but you're giving more of that money to the actual person creating it. And that's a thing that as soon as you know it, you can think that way. And you can, so if you have a band that you love, that you absolutely, that music means the world to you, look them up directly. Check out their Bandcamp, check out their website, get as much as you can from them directly, and you can support them in a very meaningful way.
Yeah. Anything where you can take the middleman out, even if it's Teespring, which is great for artists because they don't actually have to buy the shirts, even that, they take $15 off of every $20 shirt. So the band's only seeing $5. And that, doesn't include a bunch of stuff. But I was also going to say to consciously digest your art, your whatever, because one of the most important things, and I was telling them earlier, I get on my girlfriend because she listens to music that I'm like, Britney Spears doesn't need your stream. She doesn't need that. And there's millions of artists that make music on par and better than that. So seek it out, find the stuff that you like and do that, because the recommended tab that people are giving you, and this is true on YouTube specifically, but anytime stuff is recommended to you, you do not know why it's recommended to you. And when you go past that, you obviously discover way better stuff too. And that's why I commend you guys, because this is a podcast discovery show.
You mean us?
You mean us guys?
Us
oh,
guys.
That's right. Well, but yeah, it's very important to be a conscious consumer, just across the board, but in art specifically, for all the reasons Zach said, and it's just important.
But yeah, I think it's just something that music means a lot to everybody. And yeah, this can be a bleak thing to look at, but there are, even in the face of Spotify,
there's action points.
There's stuff
it's not
you can do.
Hopeless.
Yeah, there's stuff you can do so that it'll feel like you can directly support people you appreciate. And that is a great thing to support art. I think everybody can also appreciate that.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, I think we have a Matt recommendation on his first official episode.
Oh my God. So this is a podcast called Success Express. And the episode that we're going to be talking about is, let me up real quick. The episode we're going to be talking about is season 2, episode 8, the Ben-jamins, I think, with Reggie Watts.
Reggie Watts.
And I'm super excited about that. And remember,
there's always more to discover.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.